Hi, third graders, welcome back. Could you hardly sleep last night, wondering about who another suspect might be? Wondering where Wallace Wallace was? I don't know. I had a hard time too. That's why I have the same clothes on that I had yesterday. So, let's just review real quick. So, we are looking for our suspects from our book. We're looking at what their motives are, what their opportunities are, and we're making some predictions as to what we think and who we think they are. Okay, so we looked yesterday. I was thinking it was Mr. Paskey because he's that nervous kind of a guy, and he wanted to keep Wallace Wallace to himself. So this is what I filled in my notebook. I just made mine bigger for you. Yours probably is not as big, so yours might be a little smaller. His opportunities is that Wallace Wallace would have come to the Book Nook, possibly with no one else there. So we're going to think about, I'm going to read chapter 4, and we're going to think about, could we have another suspect? Here we go. Are you ready? Chapter 4. Mr. Paskey shooed them out of the Book Nook and locked the front door. I think it's Mr. Paskey. He shooed him out of the Book Nook. He wanted him out of the way and locked the door. Oh, there's the bell. Here we go. I have to eat lunch, he said. He scurried down Main Street. Come on, Dink said. There's a phone in Ellie's diner. Good. We can eat while you're calling. Josh stopped. Who are you calling? The airport, Dink said, to see if Wallace Wallace was on that 7 o'clock flight last night. They walked into Ellie's diner just as Jimmy Fallon and his grandfather came out. Jimmy was working on a triple-decker chocolate cone. Ellie stood behind the counter. As usual, her apron was smeared with ketchup, mustard, chocolate, and a lot of stuff Dink didn't recognize. Ugh. Ellie smiled. Hi, Dink. Butter crunch, right? Dink shook his head. No thanks, Ellie. I came to use the phone. Excuse me, but would it be all right if I bought you each a cone? Mavis Green asked. I was going to buy lunch for Mr. Wallace anyway. Gee, thanks, Josh said. I'll have a scoop of mint chip and a scoop of pistachio. Oh, you like green ice cream too, Mavis said. She smiled shyly. I'll have the same, please. I wonder if she kind of likes Josh. I like pink ice cream, Ruth said. I'll have a strawberry cone, please. 1 scoop. How about you, Dink? Mavis asked. I'm not hungry, thanks, he said. But you guys go ahead. I'm going to call the airport. Dink felt guilty. If he hadn't invited Wallace Wallace to Greenlawn, his favorite author would be safe at home in his castle in Maine. But Dink couldn't help feeling excited too. He felt like a detective from one of Wallace Wallace's books. Dink stepped into the phone booth and looked up the number for New England Airlines and called. When a voice came on, he asked if Wallace Wallace had been on board Flight 3132 last night. He was? Did it land at 7 o'clock? Dink asked. Thanks a lot. He rushed out of the phone booth. Hey guys, they told me Wallace Wallace was on the plane, and it landed right on time. So he didn't miss his flight, Ruth Rose said through her strawberry pink lips. That's right. Dink pulled out the itinerary. He drew a line through the word airport. This is so exciting, Ruth Rose said. Now what? Josh asked, working on his double dipper. Dink pointed to the next circle on the itinerary. Now, we need to find out if a taxi picked him up. Lauren's taxi is right over by the river, Ruth Rose said. Dink looked at Mavis. Would you like to come with us? We can walk there in 5 minutes. Mavis Green wiped her lips carefully with a napkin. I'd love to come, she said in her soft voice. They left Ellie's diner and walked left on Bridge Lane, then headed down to Woodview Road towards the river. Mr. Paskey looked pretty upset, didn't he? Josh said, crunching the last of his cone. His chin was green. Wouldn't you be upset if you had a bunch of customers at your store waiting to meet a famous author and he didn't show up? Ruth Rose asked. Yeah, but he was sweating buckets, Josh said. I wonder if Mr. Paskey kidnapped Wallace Wallace. Josh is thinking that too. Josh, get real. Why would Mr. Paskey kidnap an author? Asked Ruth Rose. He sells tons of Wallace Wallace's books. I don't think Mr. Paskey is the kidnapper, Dink said. But in a way, Josh is right. So are we. Detectives should consider everyone a suspect. just the way they do in Wallace Wallace's books. At River Road, they turned left. 2 minutes later, Dink pushed open the door of Lawrence's taxi service office. He asked the man behind the counter if one of their drivers had met Flight 3132 at Bradley Airport at the previous night. The man ran his finger down a list on a clipboard. That would be Maureen Higgins. She's out back eating her lunch, he said, pointing over his shoulder. Walk straight through. They cut through the building to a grassy area and back. Through the trees, Dink could see the Indian River. The sun reflected off the water like bright coins. A woman was sitting at a picnic table, eating a sandwich and filling in a crossword puzzle. Excuse me, Maureen Higgins. Are you Maureen Higgins? Dink asked. The woman shook her head without looking up. Nope, I'm Marilyn Monroe. She was being funny. The woman wrote in another letter. Then she looked up. She had the merriest blue eyes Dink had ever seen. Yeah, cutie pies, I'm Maureen. She pointed to her sandwich at Dink. And who might you be? I'm Dink Duncan, he said. These are my friends, Josh, Ruth Rose, and Mavis. We wondered if you could help us, Ruth Rose said. Maureen stared up at them. How? Did you pick up a man named Wallace Wallace at the airport last night? Dink asked. Okay, here's Maureen Higgins. Just sitting there eating her sandwich, doing her crossword puzzle. Maureen squinted one of her blue eyes. Why do you want to know? Because he's missing, said Josh. Well, I sure ain't got him. Maureen took a bite out of her sandwich. Mayonnaise oozed into her fingers. I know. I mean, we didn't think you had him, Dink said. But did you pick him up? Maureen nodded, swallowing. Sure, I picked him up. 7 o'clock sharp. I was there with my sign saying Wallace. The guy spots me, trots over. I take him out to my taxi. He climbs in, carrying a small suitcase. Kind of a spooky guy. Dressed in a hat, a long raincoat, sunglasses. Who wears sunglasses at night? Doesn't speak a word. Just sits. Spooky. Did you take him to the Shangri-La Hotel? Dink asked. Yep, those were my orders. Guy didn't have to give directions, but it would have been nice if he'd said something. You know, to pass the time. Lot of people, they just chat just to act friendly. Not this one. Quiet as a mouse in the back seat. Maureen wiped the mayonnaise from her fingers and lips. Who is this Wallace fella anyway? He's a famous writer, Ruth Rose said. Maureen's mouth fell open. You mean I had a celebrity in my cab and I never knew it? What happened when you got to the hotel? Josh asked. Maureen stood up and tossed her napkin to the trash. I get out of my side, then I open his door. He hops out, hands me a 20. Last I seen, he scooted into the lobby. Dink pulled out the itinerary. He crossed out the word taxi with a thick black line. Then he drew a question mark next to the hotel. Thanks a lot, Miss Higgins, he said. Come on, guys. I have a feeling we're getting closer to finding Wallace Wallace. Maureen put her hand on Dink's arm. I just thought of something, she said. When he handed me my fare, which is another word for payment, this Wallace fellow was smiling. Dink stared at Maureen. Smiling? She nodded. Yup, had a silly grin on his face, like he knew some big secret or something. The end. Okay, I don't know about you, but I've got another suspect. I think Maureen Higgins, she seems a little, I don't know, like she's also trying to hide something. Why would she tell them about all these things that Wallace Wallace didn't do, didn't talk, didn't really say anything to her, but kind of smiled when he got out of the taxi? Interesting. Do we really know that she took him to the hotel? Could she be working with Mr. Paskey? Could she have taken him to the Book Nook? I don't know, but let's just stop for a second. I'm thinking it's Maureen Higgins. Here's why I'm thinking it's Maureen Higgins. Because we are not sure, we're not 100%, we don't have any proof that she did take him to the hotel. We didn't know that at all. But I'm wondering about so that's her opportunity. but I'm wondering about the motive. She kept saying that she didn't notice that he was a famous author. So I'm going to go back. Where did she say that? She said, remember when she said that she was excited? She said, he's a famous writer, Ruth Rose said. Maureen's mouth fell open. You mean I had a celebrity in my cab and I never knew it? So that's kind of why I think she really didn't have motive. But I'm still going to fill out this section. And I'm going to write, I'm not sure. I'm going to move to the side. I'm not sure she knew who Wallace Wallace was. That he was even famous. But I think she had opportunity because she took Wallace Wallace to the hotel. But we have no proof of that. We have no idea. She didn't tell anyone. She just says it. So we're kind of taking her for her word. I don't know. With these mystery books, it kind of makes me think there's no one that's fair game, or everyone is fair game. No one can be off the hook. So here's what you're going to do today. Remove this. So remember, writers look at, whoops, my chart is falling down. Writers look at, or readers look at suspects' motives and opportunities, and then they make a prediction. So here's what I did. I'm going to move this just a little bit closer. Oh, hopefully I won't break it for Mrs. Sardina. So here's what I wrote. I think, so I'm going to start with one of my sentence stems, because when I make a prediction, I'm just kind of making a guess. I think Mr. Paskey is the one who kidnapped Wallace Wallace because he's a very nervous person. So remember when we talked about using their character trait? I don't know. He just seems really nervous for this whole thing to go down. He had the opportunity when Wallace Wallace showed up to the Book Nook. I wonder if he wanted to keep Wallace Wallace for himself because he's famous. Remember when you talked with Mrs. Sardina about having some questions? So that's why I used my I wonder. Today, here's what you're going to do. You're going to pick one of your suspects that you've been filling in your book. You're going to pick one of them, and you're going to use some of your sentence stems for I'm thinking, I wonder, make sure that you use a character trait. So you're going to pick one of your suspects and write a prediction about that suspects, but don't forget to use evidence. So open up your Google Doc, scroll down, add today's date, and I want to hear. I can't wait to hear who you think some of your suspects are in your very own books. So keep reading, keep wondering about our mysteries all around us. Kind of sounds like Mystery Doug a little bit. So we'll see you later. Bye.